Okay, I'm Leroy Quantum from Fergus Falls, Minnesota. I graduated from high school in 1944, and in June of 1944, and I had already registered for the military, and they called me in for basic training in about October of 44, and then I was called into the service in December 1944, and at Fort Snelling, Minnesota. And we went by troop train down to Jefferson Barracks, Missouri, and we went to Camp Walters, Texas. And I took my basic training there and met up with a bunch of Minnesota guys down there. And we went from a troop train from Camp Walters, Texas to Fort Meade, Maryland in last part of April 1945. And here we were in Fort Meade, Maryland, and ready to ship out overseas to Germany as replacement troops in the front lines. And Hitler heard that there's a bunch of us young guys from Minnesota coming, so he committed suicide. That's the way I tell it. But anyway, he committed suicide, and so that it kind of ended World War II. And that was April 30th, I think, that he committed suicide. And then so that ended World War II over in Germany and in Europe. So we got to march. Some of us got to march in the Victory Day parade, the VE Day, in New York City, and I was one of them that got chosen to do that. And it was kind of an interesting thing because we were marching with our fixed bayonets, and some of the young gals from the offices there were throwing down their undergarments, and some they were catching their bras, and one guy caught a young gal's underpants. So that was kind of hilarious. Yeah. So then we went from they kept us there for a while, not knowing what to do with us, and we heard rumors that we were going to Italy as occupation troops, and they canceled those orders. And one day we got an order to get on the troop train. We went 5 days and 5 nights. A bunch of us, they're from Minnesota now, and we went from Fort Meade, Maryland to Vancouver, Washington. We shipped out the next day and went to Okinawa, and we got off the ship a couple times in some of the islands there for R&R, kind of a little break, and we got to play and shoot some basketball there, hoops and stuff, and drink a little beer, I guess it was, and then we landed on Okinawa in the last part of July of 1945. The Battle of Okinawa was over with, but we had a mop up, and we had a guard duty there, and stuff. That was kind of a scary feeling because one of the guards got picked off by a Japanese sniper. The Japanese were still in their caves and stuff. They didn't know that the war had ended in Okinawa at the time. Not the war, but the Battle of Okinawa had ended. And we were in Okinawa when they dropped the bomb. Paul Tibbets dropped the bomb on Hiroshima in August 6, 1945. And then a few days later, they dropped another one on Nagasaki, August 9th. And that kind of took care of it. And the Japanese finally surrendered in August sometime. Or I think the date was September 1st or something like that. Well, anyway, we had a little more time to serve, so they flew us over to, not flew us, but we went by ship over to Korea as occupation troops, September 6th, 1945. So we were on Okinawa then. I was in the infantry, assigned to the 7th Division in Okinawa, and H Company heavy weapons, and I was a machine gunner. And so when we got to Korea, I was transferred into the quartermaster corps because I had typing in high school. And so I served the rest of the time in the 7th Division quartermaster in Seoul, Korea. I was transferred from the north, but we were up by Kaesong doing guard duty there at the 38th parallel. And so I served the rest of the time as I got to be the company clerk in the company.
Okay.
So,
My name, Jerry Kuslage, Daly City, California. I landed on Okinawa August the 5th. The war ended August the 14th. They found out I was there, and they stopped the war. Thank God for Truman. That's all I can say. I'm glad he dropped that bomb. Other than that, I occupied Korea for 1 year, drove truck and pushed bulldozers around and a power shovel operator, and basically that's what I did until I tipped over in a power shovel. We had a washout somewhere, and I happened to run into a washout and tipped over this power shovel I was operating, and went to Seoul for a couple of days, and then got out of there and went back to the barracks of the 13th Combat Engineers.
Okay, I'm Paul Homestead, Hamilton, Ohio. Born and raised in Richmond, Indiana, though. And my war story goes back to 1944, when we were authorized by President Roosevelt, 16-year-olds to join the Merchant Marine, so I did. After my 16th birthday on August 12th, 1944. Took boot camp at Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn, New York. They put us on a train for 5 days that wound throughout the country, and finally stopped in Oakland, California. And we were assigned a ship there. Mine was the SS Absaroka, which is a old freighter from remaining from the First World War. I think 1917 when it was built. But anyway, we left the United States and traveled to, our first stop was Pearl Harbor. We stopped there for a few days, formed a convoy, and headed towards Saipan. We landed at Saipan in the first part of November of 1944, and we experienced a number of attacks late at night by the Japanese Air Force, dropped bombs and everything. And then when we left there, we stopped at Guam. It had just been recaptured. And when we left Guam, I almost drowned at Guam because I went overboard. We anchored not too far from the breakwater. And I went overboard after a baseball, and the current started taking me out to sea, but I got back finally. On August the 15th, the Japanese surrendered, and they ordered us to go back to Manila to take off our guns. We had 3-inch 50 up forward, 5-inch 38 on the fantail, and some 20 millimeter anti-aircraft guns. And on the way, we dumped all of the ammo, pulled into Manila Bay, and there's a Japanese destroyer sitting there. Got spooked a little bit.
My first name is John. My second name is Schofield. I entered the service on the 24th of November, 1944. Shipped out on a ship, USS Hannover. And I don't remember the date, but I do remember it was Seattle, Washington. And I remember going aboard that ship. And I'm short. I had a duffel bag that fit from my head or my shoulders down to the floor practically. And they got a nice band there. And all of us old timers remember this song. But one I didn't appreciate at the time was Sentimental Journey. And that's going to take a sentimental journey. You telling me I was going overseas. So, went over there. We ended up 40-some days on the ocean. At that time, America was gearing up for going into Japan. And We just zigzagged all the way across the Pacific, stopped at this island, stopped at that island, and finally we ended up at Okinawa. And my recollection while still on the ship was as far as I could see, 360 degrees were ships, right to the horizon. And I suppose over the horizon. I never saw so many ships in my life. And, well, this is a little tongue-in-cheek, excuse me, but I said the war ended when I got there. The Japs found out I was over there and they quit. But then, of course, 2 bombs helped a lot. I contributed that in saving a lot of people's lives, Japanese too, both, and it changed what was going to happen. It would have been awful if we went ashore in Japan. So I headed for Korea, and I spent about a year there in occupation. We were at the end of the food chain where the food came in on a ship, it went to the general and his staff, and by the time it filtered down to us, and I was in headquarters battery, we took our choice, and then it went out to the batteries. So by the time we didn't have anything like they had up in Seoul. They had ice cream, we didn't have any ice cream. They had steak, we didn't have any steak. We didn't even have fresh eggs. One morning we did. They said, "You're going to have some good fried eggs today." Well, what we realized when we got up there to get the eggs, that they had come out of cold storage 1930 something. And these eggs, they'd throw one in there and it would just ooze out to the sides. Then you get another one with a little mold inside. And after you got about 4 or 5 of them, you might get, "Oh, here you go, here's a good one." You know? So that's the kind of food we got down there. We didn't even have beds for a lot of months. They were living like kings up in Seoul, according to what we thought.